Giannis Antetokounmpo is out for the All-Star game. Does that open the door for Franz Wagner to get recognition for his crazy good season? Today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is February 10th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, Giannis Antetokounmpo officially out for the All-Star game. He may need a replacement, and that replacement should be Franz Wagner. We'll talk about why Franz Wagner deserves an All-Star bid, even with the games that he missed, coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day. But the Locked On Magic daily newsletter is the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The news hit not pretty big because he's missed a few games, but significantly nonetheless. Giannis Antetokounmpo will miss the NBA All-Star game with a calf strain. He's already missed the last 4 games. Hope he has a speedy recovery. Not too speedy. Take your time. Get back. Let you drop a little bit in the standings to get closer to where the Magic are. But obviously, a devastating blow. Giannis, starter in the All-Star game, one of the best players in the league, having another MVP quality season that, depending on how long he's out, could take him out of postseason awards. Magic's 2 stars are out of postseason awards anyway at this point. But a big loss nonetheless. And it opens the door back up to some all-star discussions. We did not expect either Franz Wagner or Paolo Banchero to be named NBA All-Stars. It is not a surprise that despite the kind of year that both Paolo and Franz were having, and especially Franz was having, that they were not named reserves to the All-Star team 2 weeks ago. Quite simply, Franz had just come back from injury. He played 2 games since coming back from the torn oblique. Just had not played enough games. Simply had not played enough games. I really could not argue with any player that was named to the All-Star team. Pascal Siakam has had a very nice season. To me, he was given a kind of team award because the Pacers were winning. They were the 4 seed, the 5 seed at that point. I really don't have any complaints. Tyler Hero should be there. Kate Cunningham should be there. There'll obviously be arguments to be made for certain players. LaMelo Ball won the fan vote, but did not get named an All-Star, was not eventually named a starter because of the media and player vote, as well as the coaches denied him too. Trae Young certainly has a case as well. He's had a very good season as well. We'll see him tonight when the Magic take on the Atlanta Hawks. But essentially, the only argument against Franz Wagner was that he had not played enough games at the time the coaches voted. That has changed. A lot happens in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, Franz Wagner has continued to put up all-star numbers. I feel like I owe this episode to Franz because yesterday we talked a lot about Paolo. He hit the big shot. There's kind of a redemption arc for him. We like our little redemption arcs in these games and in these stories. Franz Wagner has been consistent all year long. He is not, he's gotten significantly better. But you just kind of take what he does for granted. So far this year, Franz Wagner is averaging 25 points per game. I don't believe a Magic player's averaged 25 points per game since Tracy McGrady. It's always Tracy McGrady. He's shooting 46.2% from the floor, which is a career low, but he's also shooting a career high 19.5 field goal attempts per game. He's making 9 of them, also a career high. He's shooting 31.8% from 3, which considering he shot 28.1% last year, is a major step up, shooting a career high 6.43 point attempts per game, He's still got a 51.4 effective field goal percentage. He's getting to the line more, making 86% of his free throws, 5.8 free throw attempts per game. He's got a true shooting percentage of, which takes into account his free throw shooting, of 56.8%, which is a little bit below his career average. But again, higher volume, career high PER, if that means anything, 22.4. His usage rate is at 32.1%. For the first 3 years of his career, every Magic fan complained that he did not get the ball enough. Now they're almost overusing him. And that's going to be a discussion to have in the offseason. But the Magic have given the ball to Franz Wagner and said, just go. He is an advanced stats darling, 4.3 offensive box plus minus, 1.1 defensive box plus minus, so plus 5.4 box plus minus, 2.1 victories over replacement player, according to Basketball Reference. It's not even just those overall numbers. It's that he has picked up right where he left off after the injury. Since coming back from his injury, remember the All-Star reserves were voted on, or the All-Star reserves were announced just 2 games after he returned from his injury, from a 6-week injury. Since coming back from his injury, he is averaging 26.8 points per game over the last 9 games. So this is 9-game sample. 26.8 points per game, 45.3% shooting, 21.1 field goal attempts, 31% from 3, again, on 6.4 3-point attempts, still an area to improve. He's shooting 82.3% from line on 6.9 free throw attempts and averaging 5.4 rebounds and 3.4 assists against 1.8 turnovers per game. To say the least, the only argument that Franz Wagner was not an all-star was that he did not play enough games, was that he missed too much time, that when the voting happened, the Magic were struggling, and they still are struggling. I'm not going to deny that the Magic were struggling, that Franz had not played enough games. Again, since All-Star reserves were announced, he has played 7 more games. And except for his first back-to-back in Denver, a game which I'm willing to excuse, he has scored at least 20 points in every game that he has played since November 20th against the Clippers, when he also scored only 14, which was sandwiched between 4 out of which was the only game that he didn't score at least 30 points in 4 out of 5 games, and part of a stretch where he scored 30 points in 5 out of 7 games. We need to have this discussion. And again, I don't want to get into this Paolo versus Franz debate, because it's not either or, it's both and. But with the way Paolo has struggled since coming back from injury, and it's going to take him a while, for whatever reason, Franz has come back quicker, has found his legs quicker, has found his intensity quicker. Franz Wagner is the best player on this team right now. And again, it's not either or, it's both and. It's 1A, 1B. Franz Wagner has truly blossomed into a superstar player. We are at the point where you cannot defend Franz Wagner. He is going to find a way to the basket. Victor Wembanyama tried. They got 2 blocks on him early, and Franz, like the Borg, adapted. And suddenly it didn't matter that Victor was in his way. He worked his way around him, finished through him on a few occasions. This has been a true superstar breakout for Franz Wagner. And again, we'll talk plenty about what this season means at the end of the year. But no matter where the Magic end this season, it will be a benefit for them, because Franz Wagner became this. Because the Magic now very clearly have 2 all-star players. I'm not saying all-star level. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner should both be all-stars for the next 5 years. For the foreseeable future, you should pencil them both in on the all-star team, because I don't think the Magic are going anywhere. And again, I think a lot of us recognize and understand the only reason the Magic aren't fighting for the 4 seed right now is because of the injuries, because of all the injuries that they face. And yeah, their offense is not great, but their offense is significantly better with Franz Wagner on the floor. The numbers just, again, Franz is an advanced stats darling. Like, all the numbers love him. But I want to make sure I present this to you as well. And I'll even go, once I can stall enough to get to my stats page here, I'll even go enough to look at the stats since he came back. This year, the Orlando Magic have a 111 offensive rating with Franz Wagner on the floor. A 111 offensive rating. This is a team that averages 107.2 points per 100 possessions, second worst in the league. They are nearly 4 points per 100 possessions better with Wagner on the floor. And they defend well anyway, because he's also an excellent defender who I think will be an all-defensive team player one day. Since Wagner's return, since Wagner came back on January 23rd, the Orlando Magic have an offensive rating of, as my page loads here, I apologize. I come up with stats as I'm thinking about them. The Orlando Magic have an offensive rating of 105.5. With Franz on the floor, it's just 104.7. So again, very heavy usage. There might be an argument there as he continues to work his way back. And look, the Magic have struggled. And look, there's arguments for some other players to make the All-Star team too. LaMelo Ball is averaging 28 points per game, 7.4 assists per game, but he's playing for a losing team. Like the Charlotte Hornets are not anywhere close to the playoffs. Trae Young is certainly worthy of being an all-star. And I agree, as much as there is a Trae Young narrative out there, Trae Young is still a very, very good player. He's averaging only 23.5 points per game and shooting 49.2% effective field goal percentage, his worst in a couple years. But he's averaging a league-leading 11.4 assists per game. The Hawks went to the semifinals of the NBA Cup. They're in the fight for a playoff spot. They're fighting with the Magic right now for a playoff spot. We'll do a standings check later on in the show. He is very, very deserving too. And even if you look at the all-star rosters, Giannis is on Team Chuck, a team that is loaded with bigs. Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Victor Wembanyama, Pascal Siakam, Alperen Sengun, Karl Anthony Towns. That team probably needs a Trae Young or a LaMelo Ball to help Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Donovan Mitchell. That may hurt Franz Wagner's chances to be an all-star. But frankly, based on the numbers alone, based on where this team is situated in the standings, Franz Wagner deserves your consideration to be an all-star. And at the very least, he's our all-star. We'll just call him an all-star. We don't need your labels. We don't need your jersey. We don't need that. The Magic would probably prefer that he get the weekend off. I'm sure he would probably prefer to have the weekend off too. But we need to take a moment to recognize all that Franz Wagner has done and the fact that he is one of the best players in the NBA right now. Franz does not look for attention. He does not seek attention. He just does his work. It is easy to take Franz Wagner for granted. So we're not going to. Adam Silver, name Franz Wagner an all-star. He freaking deserves it. Of course, what we really care about is where the Magic are in the standings. We'll do a standings check at the end of the episode, but let's chat where the Magic are situated as they play this major home stretch and why Saturday's win was the start of something really important. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Skims. When I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was admittedly intrigued. I've heard so much about the quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always been a boxers guy, not going to deny that. And I've lately found that boxers can be a little restricting, that, I've always had the issue where they ride up. I'm probably adjusting them right now under the desk. They're comfortable, but they're not perfect, especially when you're trying to work out, especially when we're going to be out and about for so long. I started trying Skims boxer briefs, and boy, I cannot believe the difference. I was skeptical of them. I was expecting them to feel like the old tighty whities that we all used to wear as kids. They are not anything like that. They give you plenty of room to breathe, and we all need that, but also plenty of freedom to movement to make it feel like you're not wearing any underwear. And it's always good not to be thinking about your underwear. I think that is the best thing. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com and Skims stores. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Again, that's skims.com or at Skims stores. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for your Valentine or for yourself, Skims just launched their best Valentine shop ever. Available in sizes for women, men, kids, and even pets. Check it out today at skims.com. Again, that's skims.com. I've said this several times on the podcast. I've said this several times over the last few weeks. I'm going to be repeating it here for the next at least week as we get into this part of the schedule. The next 3 weeks for the Orlando Magic are the season. Where the Orlando Magic ultimately end up, what they're competing for, where they're competing, gets decided in the next 3 weeks. The Orlando Magic will play, including Saturday's win over the Spurs, 10 of their next 11 games at the Kia Center. Among those 11 games, 8, maybe 9 now, but at least 8 are against teams with losing records. Now, 2 of them are the Atlanta Hawks. One was the San Antonio Spurs. The Golden State Warriors are among those teams as well. They'll play Cleveland and Memphis. There are difficult games. I'm not sitting here like checking off wins. The Magic right now are not playing well enough to check off wins. But if the Orlando Magic are going to make a major playoff push, if the Orlando Magic are going to secure the 6th seed or regain control of the 6th seed, maybe fight back into the race for the 5 seed, this is the stretch of games where they have to do it. Saturday's win was so important. Paolo Banchero talked about this after the Magic beat the Kings, that or even before they beat the Kings, actually. He said, I think it was actually before the Warriors. The West Coast trip was a blur. But regardless, Paolo Banchero has said recently that all the Magic need is one win. One win to kind of rebuild momentum and rebuild confidence. One win that they can match. That Denver game was tough. Just a really tough travel, just tough team. Like, it was tough to match that win. The Magic getting that win over the Spurs, gutting out that victory over the Spurs, the way they won it, feels like it relieved some tension. Feels like, okay, we can still do this. And obviously, if that game was played at Frostbank Center, I don't think the Magic win it. If they had to play, if they were down 7 with 3.5 to go, or if they were down 13 in the third quarter, the way that they went down 13 in that third quarter, I don't know if they come back to win. Being at home matters, and it matters especially for this team. The Magic still have one of the best home records in the league. And so these next 10 games at the Kia Center, their only road game is coming out of the All-Star break at Atlanta. Huge games against Atlanta. They play, I think, Atlanta 3 times in this stretch. No, they play Atlanta later. They play Atlanta 2 times in this stretch. They play Atlanta 2 times later in the season. Those could be massively consequential games. But if the Magic want to be the playoff team we all think they can be, it starts right now. It starts with going 7-4. If you can get 8-3 over these 11 games, that's the key. That's what's going to lift and elevate this team. The Magic are trying to keep the focus very narrow. They know they got to win every single game or focus on one game at a time. And their focus is winning these last 3 games to get to the All-Star break at 500. Again, it would be a massively huge victory to get to the All-Star break at 500. Because honestly, the 6th seed's probably going to be 41 or 42 wins. If the Magic can somehow get to 43 or 44 wins, they'll have a shot at the 5 seed. I really do believe that. But the 6th seed will be 41, 42 wins. We'll get to the standings in a minute. I want to make another point then. Jamal Mosley has already started to talk about this. How the goal for the Magic is, as they get healthy, to play their best basketball in March and April. That's something they have always done under Jamal Mosley. Under Jamal Mosley, after the All-Star break, so this is just after the All-Star break. In Jamal Mosley's first year, the Magic went 9-13 after the All-Star break. You might be saying, Phil, that's not a good record. The Magic won 22 games that season. So 9 of their 22 wins came after the All-Star break. It's a little bit less than half. 2 games short of half. In 2023, the Magic went 10-13 after the All-Star break. Again, Philip, you might be saying, Philip, that's not very good. They won only 34 games that year. And in last year, Orlando was 17-10 after the break. And yeah, they dropped some games late in the season, so they could have been even better. But 17 of their 47 wins came after the All-Star break when they zoomed up the standings to 5th. In each one of these 3 seasons under Jamal Mosley, the Magic outperformed their overall season win percentage after the All-Star break. That's the point I want to make. There is indeed a history of the Orlando Magic outperforming their standings, outperforming themselves in the final weeks of the season after the All-Star break. And so I think there should be confidence that the Magic are going to finish this season strong, that the Magic are going to put themselves in a good position. In fact, that's something that Jeff Weltman's teams have all done. If we want to go back to 2019, obviously that magical run, and even 2020 before the bubble, the Magic really felt like they were playing their best basketball before the season shut down. This is the opportunity at hand. We know right now the Magic are hurting for momentum. We know right now the Magic are hurting to just get any kind of energy. They're looking to get healthy. Like Paolo's mentioned it, he wants to use the All-Star break to kind of rework his conditioning, kind of get himself back into better shape. He'll have a little bit more time to work on himself rather than through the constant, drumbeat of games. Franz Wagner, I think, also needs to improve his conditioning. He's obviously still playing at a really high level, but you see him get tired at times. You see him still not being able to stretch his minutes, even though he is still playing a ton of minutes, and the Magic really can't afford to not have him on the floor for very long. This is all the opportunity here. Whenever Jalen Suggs comes back, I don't think it'll be this week. I think it'll be after the All-Star break. But this team's going to be whole again very, very soon. And hopefully whole for the rest of the season. Hopefully we're done dealing with injuries or thinking about injuries in any significant way. And when that happens, then we get to see who this team really is. Like the reason why the Magic didn't make the trade deadline moves we all wanted them to make is Jeff Weltman, I think, rightfully believes and rightfully said, we've only seen our top three guys for 96 minutes. We have not seen our best basketball because we have not seen our whole team. And I don't think that necessarily excuses or lowers the urgency to improve this team's offense, or necessarily means you still should have done something. But I do agree with that point. The Magic's best basketball is ahead of them. But those foundations are laid over the next 3 weeks. Those foundations are made during this stretch at home when the Magic are not traveling, when the Magic have no excuses, when the Magic are in the comforts of the Kia Center where they dominate teams. If we're going to see the Orlando Magic get back to where we believe they should be, it starts now. That's why Saturday's game was so important. Paolo said it after the game. I asked him, starting this home stretch, how important was it to start with a win? And he kind of put it bluntly, I don't know what would have happened if we would have lost this game. There is definitely, everything feels like it's on a high wire act right now. And look, Saturday's win means nothing if they don't match it with the win tonight against Atlanta. And this is a hugely important game. Kind of got to keep the Hawks in their place. No offense to our friends at Locked On Hawks. Got to keep them in their place and keep them beneath you in the standings. We haven't faced them yet. This is a huge game, and these are huge moments for this team that are going to decide the season. The next 3 weeks are the season for the Magic, just plain and simple. So where do the Magic stand? Let's do a quick standings check to start the week. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. FanDuel has so many great offers and so many exciting ways to play. Whether you're backing your team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, you never feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. we're going to make this a regular segment, mostly when I don't have a third thing to talk about, but maybe we'll make this every Monday now that we're getting to the All-Star break. Let's do a standings check. Let's see where the Magic are in the standings. At 26-28, the Orlando Magic remain in 8th place in the Eastern Conference. They are 3-7 in their last 10 games. Again, 16-9 at the Kia Center. That is the key factor here. They only lead the Atlanta Hawks by a half game. The Hawks are 25-28, so the Hawks also have a game in hand. This is going to be the big key in how we look at these standings. Orlando's played 54 games. They played the most games in the league. So in some sense, if they're ahead on wins, there's other teams that can catch up on wins. If other teams have more losses than them, those are losses that the Magic can catch up, can make up, or that they'll potentially make up. Those are games that the other teams can't make up. Having said that, nobody has more losses than the Magic at this point. At 28 losses, the Magic and the Hawks both have 28 losses. Orlando's in a neck-and-neck race with Atlanta right now to stay out of the 9-10 play-in game. So, with that in mind, and look, Chicago is 3.5 back. They're 22-31. They're worst team since the All-Star break after trading Zach LaVine. The Philadelphia 76ers are 20-32. The Magic would need a massive collapse to fall out of the postseason. The Magic should be a postseason team this year. I don't think anyone is worried about the Magic not playing a game 83, but obviously we want and expect more from this team. So to that point then, where do the Magic stand in where they want to be? The Miami Heat are 25-25. They are a game ahead of the Magic. So again, they played only 50 games. Orlando has played 54. Orlando has just one more win than Miami in 54 games than Miami does in 50. So Orlando's, we have to make this clear. Orlando's got to take care of themselves, take care of their business. At the end of the day, it's a race to 82. So race to the end of the season. If Miami stays 500, Orlando can go 500. That's 15-13 the rest of the way. Very doable. Very, very doable. The Detroit Pistons, having played 53 games, are 27-26. So they've played one fewer game and have one more win. So Orlando is right there neck and neck with the Pistons. I think that is really, really important to note. The Milwaukee Bucks. So the Magic are officially a game and a half back of the Pistons, but it's really one win behind the Pistons. So one win, one loss change there. Magic own the tiebreaker with Detroit, which could be very important. Orlando currently owns a tiebreaker with Miami as well. Miami's only 14-15 and are 5-3 in the division. Orlando's 5-2 in the division. So ultimately, whether Orlando can win the Southeast Division comes down to these games against the Hawks. So I want to stress this again. Tonight's game against Atlanta is huge. The Magic play the Hawks 4 times still this season. They have not played Atlanta at all. Cannot afford losses to Washington, cannot afford losses to Charlotte. The games against Atlanta are going to determine whether the Magic can win the division in a tie with Miami. So again, getting to 41-41, the Magic have to go 15-13. Very, very doable. To get to Detroit at 27-26, one game over 500, to get to 42 wins, Orlando has to go 16-12. Again, very doable. Like, the Magic are not out of any of these races at all, and they're, at the point where it's not important what the other teams do. If the Magic take care of their business, if the Magic win at the rate we know they're capable of, they'll be fine for the playoffs. The Magic are still, they're not in control of their own destiny. They do need those teams to slow down, to falter a little bit. Detroit's only 5-5 in their last 10. They're 14-13 at home, 13-13 on the road. They're a true 500 team. The Magic are 16-9 at home. They dominate at home. And so the next 3 weeks are going to be them building back their record up before they take a big 5-game road trip that is not going to be easy. It's at Milwaukee, at Houston, at New Orleans. At Milwaukee, at Houston. It's way off in the future. At Minnesota, at Cleveland, and then there's one more team in there at San Antonio. There it is. And that's a tough back-to-back. That's going to be a really, really tough back-to-back. So there are difficult games ahead. The Magic have, by some accounting, the 4th easiest schedule remaining by opponent win percentage, the 3rd easiest schedule by according to Positive Residual. These next 3 weeks are when that easy part of the schedule comes. So again, we will do a standings check again in 3 weeks after this homestand, and where the Magic are after that is going to be big. They have to be ahead of some of these teams. They have to be ahead of Miami. They have to be ahead of Detroit, or at least even with them. as they hit a rougher part of the schedule where they'll just be trying to stay kind of above water and trying to scratch out wins where they can. Even Milwaukee, honestly, the 5th seed Milwaukee Bucks, they're 28-23. They played 51 games. Orlando's again at 54. Orlando's only 2 wins behind them. So again, Milwaukee does have 3 more opportunities, assuming they win them all. They're at 31. That puts them 5 games ahead of Orlando. They're not going to win them all. They're 4-6. Giannis is going to be out for a little bit. So there are opportunities here to climb the standings. Indiana will be a little bit tougher. Indiana's schedule is a little bit on the easy side too, but they're playing very, very well up at the 4 seed. So we'll see if they can make that climb or not. But this is the point I want to make. The Magic are still in this race. They're down. They put themselves in a little bit of a hole. They got some ground to make up, but they are still very much in this race and very, very capable of still getting to the 6 seed. And honestly, like, it sucks. The Magic aren't probably going to hit their goal of getting home court advantage. The goal for the rest of the season, if there's a standings goal to make, it's to finish with the 6 seed. Get to 42, 43 wins, and you're probably going to get the 6 seed. Like, that's the truth. That's really how I feel. As we get to 43 wins, you're probably going to be the 6 seed, because I don't see Detroit or Miami being too much above 500. Miami's got a tough schedule. Detroit's got a tougher schedule. Indiana's really the only team that has a schedule kind of comparable to Orlando's. Atlanta's schedule also is on the easier side. I frankly just don't think they're as good of a team, but they're right there with Orlando too. They're probably feeling the same way Orlando does, and they know how big this game is tonight against the Magic at the Kia Center. Orlando wants to stay kind of in this catty corner. They want to stay in this 6, 7, 8 race. They don't want to entertain the 9 seed. They have to at this point. It is a possibility. A loss tonight puts them in 9. That's going to look like that in the standings. But Orlando still controls their own destiny. If they can get back to winning, if they can get back to winning consistently, they will put themselves in a really good spot to get to the 6 seed. I still think they're going to be the 6 seed. I still think that they have the ability to get there. And if they play really well, if they play as well as we think they're capable of playing, the 5 seed isn't out of the question, but there's a lot of ground to make up. 3.5 games is a lot of ground. A game and a half on Detroit, not that much ground to make up. So there's still plenty of time. There's still a lot of games. Nobody's in a panic mode about where the Magic are in the standings. It's just about, let's take care of ourselves. Let's take care of how we play, and let's climb those standings slowly but surely, with the fact that we're just winning basketball games. Just win games. That's really all that matters. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Find me on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all Filmation podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can also find us on YouTube. Search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On Magic Daily newsletter, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter, which I'll be writing directly after I finish this episode. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to recap the Magic's game against the Atlanta Hawks. Until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.